Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode. Are we becoming the mind of the world? I would say this morning a very interesting idea landed on the branch of my mind. And the idea was very shocking. That I was wondering that could it be that we feel that our subjective experience is because of the material position, but could it be that the world, rather than from a physical position, is staying in a physical position, is going from physical to non-physical? For a moment, I just fathomed, could it be that we are all becoming minds, but we don't realize it? And when you look at it from the beginning, it has been you can say the self-awareness of the object was lacking. You know, when I wonder about the type of evolution human beings have been going, it's as if after some point the physical evolution of it stopped. And not that it stopped, but of course, evolution is something that is you can't notice it. It is something. If you could fast forward millions of years, you would notice the difference. You know, like a fast forwarded film. But I would say I was wondering about this position that could it be that what we consider to be abstraction is just the next phase of our evolution? It's the continuity. That means the continuity. How does an object evolve? It becomes a subject. You know, it could be a sort of notion that it's matter. First, a mind discovers itself in matter, then the matter discovers itself in a mind. Or you can say a known mind discovers itself in unknown matter, then the known matter discovers itself in the unknown mind. In the Bhagavad Gita, there's an interesting passage where Krishna, pretty much the Bhagavad Gita is this ancient, you can say Vedic book, authored by Rishi Vyasa. In it, there is God, known as Krishna, who comes to have a dialogue with Arjuna. Now, there's a part of that dialogue, I don't remember exactly where of the Gita, but there's a part of it where Krishna is telling, God is telling this archer on a battlefield who doesn't want to fight, that many lives I have been with you. And I don't remember if this was the exact wording, but it was as if man is not alone. In the same way that you would say the body finds itself in a world, I would say the mind, or let's say it like this, an object finds itself inside a bigger object. One can say that the subject is finding itself inside a bigger subject. The implication of evolution moving towards a non-physical position could be that right now we are designing the memories for the collective mind we will be. There is something strange in nature I have noticed, and it's something that you could say it could be personal to me, or maybe others share this view. But for me, I have felt there is something going on behind the scenes of nature as a sort of preparation for what is to come. As if nature knows what man does not. I wrote a quote I thought I shared in this episode. A warrior that is familiar with the type of war cannot fear that type of war. That means, imagine that you have, I mean, if you were a Buddhist, it wouldn't be hard, but imagine you had lived this pattern of a life endlessly. And even though, from, of course, how would I say it? In the same way that Krishna in the Gita tells Arjuna that he has been with him in different lives, and I don't know if this is implied, but in my perception, there's a sort of taking turns. That one, like it's a symbiosis with a collective being, where every being that is individual, physically, I would say, non-physically, has a collective counterpart. What does that mean? That means what we think is an individual human life could be a symbiosis of a collective being with a fragment of itself. Now, if we consider that at the beginning of the universe, when we speak about matter, that this is the case, that at the beginning there was no matter, you know, even when we consider the Big Bang, you know, the clues we have gotten from the Hubble telescope and the background radiation, what we're seeing is that there was an, of course, unknown state, but it was a sort of potential pool of energy, you know. Now, there is also string theory, we can't avoid that, but the issue with string theory is that it needs way more dimensions of authorization before it can make sense. That means, what was it? It's like 10. String theory had 10 to 11 dimensions that it had to satisfy. But we are not in 10-dimensional reality, you know. That means mathematics has an imagination. And it has an imagination that linearity can access, you know. It's as if the same moment we are being a self inside a world, we are being a world inside a self. When we feel the world is inside the self, we feel like an object. When we feel the self, or let me say it like this, I mean, from both angles you could see both cases, but it would be that if the self if the self considers itself here first, of course the world has no choice but to be the effect of the self. If the world was here first, the self has no choice but to be the effect of the world. And this is the major debate between human beings. I would say this renders human existence or experience of existence into four possibilities. Either you're individual first, you see the individual first, then the collective. Either you see the collective first, then the individual. Or you have surpassed the game of selves and worlds. You know, there's this poet named Attar. He's a Sufi mystic poet from, I don't know, 800 years ago. Attar, he says, that he uses this terminology. It's very simple, but he uses it. He says the soul of the soul of the soul. The soul of the soul of the soul. Now, I thought about we as human beings, especially from a materialist secular perspective, we don't consider the idea of soul. We consider, because the world was here first, what is the soul? It inevitably is the world. I began wondering if the self, from seeing materialism first, if the self is from the world, then we, considering the soul to be the sovereignty of the self, it would be the world of the world of the world of the soul of the soul of the soul. Do you see what I mean? That means there is not just an evolution to the self in the world, there is an evolution of how the world responds to the self. You know, it's as if we haven't considered that we could potentially, just human consciousness could be like a chemical, where it's like an exchange between us behaving in a certain way on the planet and then the planet behaving towards us. Now, could it be that the planet is trying to communicate to its creation? Could it be? You know? That means, let's just for a second put away all ideas and look at what is, let's put away emotional potentials of mystery and just for a second see that what is going on the surface of this planet. It is an emergence system. It's a system where phenomenology emerges. Now, we, as emergent properties of the system, have control over what emerges. Now, that control is as mysterious as why there should be an emergence of phenomenology in the first place. You know, that means, I'll tell you the something that I think the true philosophically minded on this planet perceive. You see, some people want an answer. I would say there is something that the scientific mind and the religious mind have in common that the philosophical mind doesn't. The metaphysical and the spirit, I could say the spiritual oriented and the philosophical, they don't have that view. Let me tell you why. In the religious context, and the reason I'm speaking about religion and science is because these two have fought a lot. It's like pretty much, you know, the screeching wheel gets the oil. From a religious standpoint, the person wants answer. The person wants an answer to things. And religion gives an answer. And the cool thing about being in the void is that any answer could be probable, especially when there's so much unknown. That means I could say the whole universe is inside a glass container that none of us can see. You know, let's say it was like, I don't know. We are, let's say, inside the light bulb of another parallel reality of Earth, all of this Earth, for example. Do you know what I mean? I'm just trying to give you an idea. That it's not just we are watching nature. Nature is watching us, and this game of watching is going to lead to an inseparability. I mean, think about it. Imagine right now we're individuals, right? We're individuals right now. Now imagine we lived way more than how far we have lived as individuals, and we live so long as individuals that we're like, okay, we've been for eons being an individual. Let's see what collective humanism is like. Now imagine we were collective for so long, to a point where you asked, imagine it the opposite. Right now we're seeing a civilization filled with 8 billion, you can say, self-centered factors. You know, now imagine if it was world-centered. Imagine the opposite of what you see now in civilization. Imagine you saw excuse me, imagine we were collective, we were efficient, we were advanced. Imagine no human being had hurt human beings for 100 years. It had been the first 100 years where no violence on this earth had happened. Do you know? And it had been, imagine after the first 100 years, we had suddenly tapped into a technology where we no longer required to eat animals. Do you know? And we went through that phase. You know, it's all about events. This nature, the nature of the universe, it is an event. And the fascinating thing about it is that you can sit in your corner of the universe and fathom it in endless ways, only to see that it always has an unknown. That means the issue is that we are seeing the unknown as a smudge on the known mirror, but we should see the unknown as the true mirror. The true reflection of man is unknown. Do you know? That means it's kind of fascinating that, for example, in the, I would say from the religious mentality, it's as if God is inconceivable, but man is made in the image of God in the Abrahamic traditions. So it's this strange thing where we are made in the reflection of a truth that we cannot fathom, you know? And when we begin wondering, sometimes I think the idea of God was just the earliest archetype for the whole thing. That means people could see, like, I don't know, a group of birds flying together, and then you think about what it's like, a group of worlds flying together, you know? You know, guys, I'll be honest. I have fathomed my own non-existence. Sometimes automatically in dreams I have seen my non-existence. I fathom it sometimes when the energy levels of my existence are low. And there's times that I feel that I can desire infinity, but is the biological system designed for infinite desire? That means the mind's desire could potentially go on regardless of the body's efforts, you know? That means it's not enough to just be uh, to just maintain the body in a way where you are trying as a embodied form to be compassionate to an unknown field of mind. It would be in a way where your mind, while you're alive, redeems and re-enlists and honors your physical existence. What that means is it's literally like the warrior has been holding the wrong sword, and the warrior wonders why the error is there. The warrior requires to throw that sword on the ground, drop the whole past, look at the moment, and then pick up the new sword. There's no other way, because the baggage of the past is heavy if you carry it. That means I would say that is the value of forgiveness, really. And sometimes what we find in, you can say, stress and depression statistics all over the world increasing, you know why it is? It is because the person cannot forgive themselves. They can forgive others. I have seen, I could tell you, I mean, this is partially from my own eyes in this lifetime as well, but I would say there are some people who are such incredible human beings that they instantly forgive the outer realms, but when it comes to their inner realms, how can they forgive? I will tell you that is true liberation, where the soul can continue and begin its new work. You see, there are certain schools of thought that they focus on renunciation. Back in the day, life was so intense, I could totally see, yeah, they wanted to get out of here. But I would say now, it is not time for renunciation. That means anybody who is uh, identifying with a compassionate ideological system that is either escaping, avoiding, or trying to leave the world was never a compassionate ideological system. You know, it is true that in mystical thought we open up to the possibility that there could be so much more to this perceptive picture of the realm, that why just get caught in one room where there could be endless rooms, or you could even get out of the simulation of the cosmic house and truly abide as your nature, you know? But the thing is that where did the flaw begin? You know, I don't know if people have experienced this, but this is really the wisdom of the fool. The fool is too foolish to suffer. If the fool can become responsible for the realm, I mean, think about it. If you care for yourself, you only care for yourself. If you care for the world, you care for everyone, and you also care for yourself too. This is why if everybody cared for the collective vision of the species, then technically you're included in that too. You know? It's like that's the cool thing about living for the life of now, I would say. I have a twin brother. My brother, he calls it something else. He calls it the Tao of now. You know, guys, can you imagine they go and ask someone who's super happy, you know, and they're like, "Hey, man, how did you forgive yourself? How was it possible?" You know, and the person's like, "I don't have time, man, to to hover in an archetype that has already accepted its defeat." That is the biggest thing. If the idea that you are entertaining is inefficient and you feel, you know, inefficient, then the outcome is inefficient. We are way more than words have made us. You know, excuse me. Uh, Let us consider space being the first child of existence that was born. Then we have matter. Then we have mind. Then we have the mind's space. Then we have the mind's matter. So we can say that our inner realms, because they are reflecting the outer realms, technically appear to us as a universe. I mean, think about it. Right now, I see a coffee cup in front of me. This coffee cup, the object is not the subject, obviously, but I'm saying that when I look at this object, to me, it's a coffee cup. That language has become synonymous with the existence of the form. I think we require to create a term and call it overmind. I mean, technically it's not a term you can create. It's just pretty much there is an intelligence prior to contained intelligence. And so we could say uncontainable intelligence. It's intelligent, and due to its nature being dynamic, that means nobody can take a photo of a river and feel that it's just the river. Whereas Heraclitus says no man can step in the same river twice, and it is not the same man, and it is not the same river. It could totally be that the universe is just breathing, and its inhalation and exhalation is multidimensional objects suddenly back into a singular, non-object. That means, like, wouldn't this be an interesting question? Let's say extraterrestrials had made contact, advanced, peaceful extraterrestrials had made contact. And imagine we went up to an extraterrestrial and we were like, the extraterrestrials shake hands with the human leaders and all that. So the extraterrestrials were pretty much cool. They were cool. Now we ask, imagine these extraterrestrials, do you believe in God? And I will tell you, most likely, if there is such a case, the answer would be not a concept. Concepts are for human beings. They're toys for the human position. In Sufi thought, existence is a station. There's a lot of stations. There's various ways that the attention can pilot and energy can find allegiance with different rhythms. If we are becoming the mind of the world, that technically means, at least in this view, evolution's destination is non-physical. If evolution's destination is non-physical, that means there is consciousness, but the conditions that were providing that consciousness no longer were necessary. What does that mean? Imagine the first human being who makes a copy they connect their consciousness to a computer. And imagine from the camera of that computer, your consciousness is looking at your eyes and you're finding a moment. Isn't that incredible? Honestly, it would become like two mirrors. That means imagine there was a copy, like Photoshop copy paste version of yourself in front of you. and you were looking exactly into yourself, and from both sides you had access. That means the memory of both angles of perception were connected. It would be a mirror. And that means man will feel infinity when the inner and outer become the same. And that infinity will be hollow to the individual. That means you can say there are states of being that surpass bodyhood, and then there's states of being that surpass mindhood. And when you surpass mindhood, it is no longer in the sovereignty of a fragment of the system's decision making. Imagine 70 years from now, or maybe that's too soon. Let's say imagine 200 years from now. It has become super simple. Everybody, it has become common knowledge. Every living human being on the planet knows that we are the universal mind. That means there's no longer this fight over God, belief or disbelief over abstractions in the void. It's as if human beings know that in any moment they can just be still and silent and be the universal mind. Be through the universal mind. That means it would be as if no longer a discussion of God, soul, unknown mind. It would pretty much just be like, it's like imagine somebody makes an error and you're like, shame on you. Look through your universal eyes, and the person just closes their eyes and gets this sort of outer this perspective of, okay, I'm in a universe. What am I doing? And that mindfulness hits in, push is ushered in. And guys, I wanted to say something. At least I wanted to make sure at least I had said it in one of the talks. For all those, because I don't know how these talks are coming across to people. I don't know how much these talks are, occupying the attention of people listening. You know, I would say all that I'm really trying to say to the audience is that you are alive once in the form that you are. Every day happens once. Um, if my words are found in your vision of your own greatest work, then I welcome people listening. But I will say, imagine if one person's mind the fountain of truth is behind the eyes of the person. That means I'm telling you that there's a reason we exist. Because if that reason isn't there, then we can't be existence. We are reasoning our existence here. We are existing to reason existence to then see if our reasoning it continues to exist. Every person has to find their great work. Your great work could be an inner realm thing where you may feel like you're here on this earth not to serve the advanced civilization, but rather to find out why you're here, just your eyes. I can't tell you how many people I have spoken to that they feel too many people want to leave this world. Those people who stay, who Not that they want to stay in karma. Do you know the whole algorithm to karma is selflessness? That means you can build an advanced civilization actually selflessly. But what I'm trying to say is, I hope that anybody who's listening, you realize that we're all antennas, and every person's DNA is an instrument. That means it's like more than what's these talks of mine are fascinating. I will tell you, all of this to the future is nothing, first of all. And then that your own eyes are where your true gift is. There are some questions that make the mind pointed inwards. And then those questions get momentum based on the curiosity of the individual, you know. That means pretty much yogis were being like the Sherlock Holmes of the internet. Your own life is the real show. That's the whole point. But anyways, back to the topic. Are we becoming the mind of the world? I feel we are the body of the world, are we not? We're made of the periodic table right now. That means every person in this lifetime that I have been in a conflict in and they have judged me, they have been judging the periodic table. That means we are, if we truly perceive ourselves as elemental, then we cannot be a subject ever. You know, there's two types of interpretation. I would say there's a static interpretation of the realm. And this is where a lot of the wars start from, static interpretations. Then there's dynamic interpretations, and these dynamic interpretations, you could say that it's the dynamism of the interpreter. There is something that's moving. It's as if like a surfer riding a wave. It's as if they are not the wave, they are not moving the wave, but technically they are moving with the wave, you know? That means the person is not responsible for the movement of the surfboard, but is responsible for the outcome of the movement of the surfboard. That means honestly, like being alive is like that. You know, the space-time continuum is like ocean waves, and you just find opportunities to just surf this realm. I honestly feel we should treat this world as an airport. And children being born, they are in some sense entering the airport, you know. And then we leave this airport. And from different places. I mean, see, culture is abstract. That's the whole point of it. Human beings were quiet. Linguistic professors even suggest that there was meaning prior to language. You know, a caveman saw like a rock falling on its, you know, another caveman or something, and the caveman was like, they didn't have language, they didn't have an alphabet, they didn't have this ability that, like, for example, how I'm speaking, but there was meaning, there was something there. That means the being was like, the caveman was like, ah, 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 ah. Do you know what I mean? Like, the caveman didn't have language, but there was emotion in accordance to an inner landscape. So I would say our emotions are more ancient than our thoughts. And that's a sentence I never thought I would say. I would say, I could. Ancient emotions and modern void thoughts. In a dynamic interpretation of the realm, it can't be an equation, because it doesn't matter if you compare one point of reference with another point of reference, or compare one point of reference with 10 points of reference in a world where it's endless and we can't index the whole thing to make an analysis. Do you know? Literally, we're left to the limits of our imagination. I think this is what Einstein understood when he said imagination is the sign of true intelligence, because imagination is what grounds. Imagination is exploration. I will tell you, it's an effort. It's something energetic is happening, and when someone explores, what happens? They move. So I would say we could totally forget about this idea of intelligent beings and non-intelligent beings. Forget about just measuring intelligence in our own way, and just say that there is moving intelligence and there is static intelligence. That's it. And we can fathom that there's intelligence, there's energy around. I mean, it's like you're like, okay, let's say there was an intelligence. You see, here's the thing. The mystery of what form is kind of like breaking the atom, and then breaking what's in that, and then breaking what's in that, then reaching a point where there's no perception, so it becomes empty. So you know how they say like 99.9% of the atom is empty. I feel that's it's not it's empty to the eye so far. You know that means I honor science's position in the realm. The scientific method is. I can't tell you how. Literally listening to Richard Feynman at some phase of my life, like his interviews on YouTube, were like helping me out of my, a certain, emotional time of my life. It's precision, honesty, and wonder with language. You see, you have to allow the person should allow the new to emerge in the same way the universe has allowed the brain to emerge. You know? And the cool thing about this world is every person is a potential, is an unknown potential. I would say the coolest thing about this life that really can render depression, that can eradicate depression, is that conceptually it doesn't make sense. In the sense that if the person doesn't know their potential, how can they decide who they are to judge themselves? You see, I had this unique experience where it was so. I was on my porch and I was sitting with a notebook usually, and a cup of coffee or tea. I think I had tea at the time. And I remember, guys, in my inner realms, my mind for the first time was like, okay, you've heard of the concept of chaos. You've heard of the concept of order. Now wonder about your most chaotic and ordered self. And I could tell you, as I was seated on the porch, like at this table, I just envisioned in front of me the most chaotic version of myself my mind could imagine. The most chaotic. Everything is, nothing off limits, the most chaotic version of myself I fathom. Then, simultaneously, because chaos cannot exist without order, there's order. I envisioned the most ordered, the most version of myself, and I was envisioning it as if I had lived these lifetimes, how would it be? And I remember I saw the chaotic and ordered self, you know? And it was as if they were looking at each other, and then there was a moment where they were looking at me. And it was this fascinating thing that I was the third. I was the witness of the chaotic identity archetypes and the ordered archetypes of my own psyche. So I would say, of course, the idea of the triangle has been, oh my God, reduced to storification. But I would say that geometry in the school of Athens, or you would say in the minds of the like of Plato, Aristotle, Socrates, there was something about even Archimedes. Archimedes was this mathematician, I believe, mathematician from Athens who saved the village using gears and catapults. And this dude was like, holy shit, this village is under siege, this keep or whatever. And there was something, I don't know, I will tell you, I would say there's some human beings who get more fascinated with the geometry of the realm. I would say my attention since childhood has been to that geometric dimension. Just like how you would say a painter, let's say somebody who's a painter since childhood, the person has liked to paint, that person has a sensitivity to color, and light. They have noticed color. For me, it wasn't color. Color, of course, it can come, but I would say for me, it was sensitivity to design. I can't tell you how geometrical we are right now. We don't realize it. And if we are in a simulation, its code's immediate first principle expression is geometry. Geometry is the the language of the oh God, how would I say it? So Lorna in the chat section says I was talking about today how all is in mathematics somehow. Yeah, guys, there's this book called Fractal Time. I don't remember who it's by though. And in this book, there was this idea sharing that in mathematics, time could theoretically go backwards. That means we can map it through some sort of conceptual relevance. That means mathematics is literally as if like a language that translates reality and imagination. For example, we have like irrational numbers. For example, the number pi is an irrational number. That means mathematicians pretty much looked at it and it's like, God damn it, this doesn't make sense. I would say they should create it as chaotic numbers and ordered numbers instead of irrational and rational. Really what the sciences and mathematics in general need to live on is they need an ethos, they need a story. That means a story of a sort of cosmic honor, you see? I will tell you that we should not even be too defined by our professions. We should aim for the universal. Whatever that may be, its reward, its glory, its peace, is weighing more. That means think about it that the more we go back in time, the less we were aware of our own ability as a creature. Now we are really aware of our ability as a creature, you know? You know, there's this idea that they say technology is occupying so much of our life and people's attention is going on a sort of digital experience throughout the day. I would say it's so important. You know, that means it's as if like I would say that it's like it's so important how we build the future cyberspace hive mind. You see, every generation is pioneering something. The poet Rumi, I have to share this poem. He says, I died as a mineral and I became a plant. I died as a plant and I rose to animal. I died as an animal and I was man. When was I less by dying? Why should I fear death? I shall die once more to soar with angels blessed. But even from angelhood I must pass on to that which no mind has conceived. An implication that we think we are bodies that have minds. We are bodies that are remembering themselves as minds. We are becoming a universal mind. And for those who perceive this realm as some sort of educational planet, I personally don't like that term. But I would say for those who do see this world as a school, for me it's a battlefield, but for a lot of people it's a school, this world. So for those who see it as a school, think of it this way, that we are graduating as a species from individual consciousness into collective awareness. Awareness is not condition based. That means a child whose eyes are open but doesn't know language, doesn't even know its name, that child is just awareness. I would say that child at that point is just biological awareness. You know, it's pretty much just a biological activity in accordance to just sight. No processing, no layers of subjective filtering of the complexity of the meaning. You know, you don't see like a child be born and when the doctor slaps the child, the child looks at the doctor, hey doctor, I'll get you back one day. Can you imagine? The doctor's like, did this infant just talk? What I'm trying to say is that there is awareness. We all start from there. And that's really what silence and stillness makes you acquainted to, how you are instantly just being, regardless of whatever categorization, regardless of whatever armor we wear in this void. The only way you can walk through the void is to be void. That means when you are working with the invisible, to be visible doesn't make sense. Now, what would an invisible self be? And this is the challenge. This is where, if this question is not responded to sincerely, can lead to the intense storification, or it can lead to incredible freedom. Do you know it's a tool? This life is a tool. And I'm saying that in a positive way. it's an opportunity. So think of your intelligence in every moment an opportunity. Now, whether language moves in accordance to your outer realms, for example, people listening to me now, I'm your outer realms. I'm from your outer realms being a voice to you. Now it's as if like there is this incredible, I think this is the secret to skill and competence, is that you just care to see who you would be if you had done it. That means that I can tell you that is the greatest my motivation in life, especially in certain projects and certain areas of my life where I've had to be pretty much walk through the coal, the burning coal. I would say when all conscious effort is exerted, then in that moment, when there is no expectation from the self, the ultimate arrives. So you can either communicate in such, let's say in the future, I'm saying, like we can see people talk communication advancing. Think of people who are going to be born, who are going to say so many times more next level than anything we can fathom now. Freedom just becomes participation to some degree. I can see that we could be just emptiness for how long? Then we become fullness for how long? Then we fractalize this for how long? For how long can attention just endure without the ultimate question of what is this attention? And this is what I don't like about those who fear the questions that start with why. Those are the royal questions. That means if we were to see why is a royal question. Billy says, no, you're not now who you were then. Forgive yourself. Okay, well said. You know, there was this thing in combat which separated, at least I would say, the real warriors from those who weren't, that the real warrior did not want an easy fight. Not that didn't want an easy fight, but the real, I find what it is that here's the thing, if you can respect someone yet still compete. You know, if we set in place a collective, a collectively extracted ethos, a new story, then in honor of that story we will forgive. That means, imagine there is let's say 200 years from now, there is one person who pushes another person, and a fight's about to begin, and that the person who's been pushed, he says, I'm not going to push you back because the advanced civilization doesn't deserve that kind of human being. Do you see? It becomes that outer ethos that inspires you. It literally, see, it is filling the void of God, but as a collective effort. Do you know? That means when you look at the religious ideology, you see in the commandments, it's as if there is a dimension of kindness, even though it's like there is also chaotic dimensions in ancient books, but I would say there's also a peaceful dimension. You know, there's an ordered dimension. And I would say the fact that ancient books are paradoxical is the mystery part. Do you know? Because if they were not paradoxical, it would be way more convincing that it was individual based. Because the individual has to select between chaos and order. What is the final outcome? But the final outcome of the religious narrative is like a film rewinding back to the person who pressed play first. I find that anytime isolation, loneliness, solitude finds the individual, that's where that time should be used for skill. That's one thing that I realized, that what would you see the Shaolin monk do in movies? What would you see the warrior do in movies? You know, the warrior would, in some sense, be at the school training with others, yay, follow the program, yay. Then, those students that surpassed the other students alone were mastering their craft outside. So you'd find that warrior alone in the forest, suddenly practicing, I don't know, the techniques on nature or whatever, you know? So I would say, in solitude, learn from yourself. In collectivehood, learn from your world. Because why else would it be here? You know, this world is here to be seen. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? Like, I think the planet is not pissed off. If the planet had a personality, I think it wouldn't be pissed off because we're disturbing the atmosphere or something. The planet would be pissed off and be like, okay, it took me 4.5 billion years to get these creatures here, but they don't even see me. What is this? You know? The guy in mind is like, what? You know, the guy in mind is like 4.5 billion years of evolution. Are they putting boxes of language and belief systems on their head and just living in this world without seeing beyond the ethnocentrism? As Dylan Thomas says, do not go gentle into that good night. Rage against the dying of the light. I will tell you, instead of good night, I would say, do not go gentle into your inner realms. And not that do not go gentle into your inner realms, but I'm saying, like, there is no greater power. If I was to give divinity an attribute, I would say sincerity. You in the Eastern traditions, for example, in Islamic thought. I was raised in Iran, like till the age of 7. But I'll tell you, like, there was what can I say? The term is called ikhlas. It means sincerity. That means, technically, in the religious mindset, that invisible surveillance is causing the person to be sincere. You know what it is? Religion is a speed limit on the exploratory nature of vision. It's not wrong, you know, but it's at a certain speed of acceptance. Because think about it. What happens when the speed of particles increases, you know? The liquid evaporates. The particles are no longer, they have broken beyond their boundary. And I feel that's the thing, that the more we actually live directly and experientially and put the language on the passenger seat, then the person observes an unknown realm, then extracts meaning. There was a story my father told me of his childhood, and he had a big family, and one day my father and my uncles were playing. They were kids, and my grandparents weren't home, and they were playing and they were running around in the house. One of them falls onto, like, they were fighting, like, the kind of how siblings are competitive, then suddenly when an emergency happens they all become angels. you know so it was a situation where my father was saying that one of my uncles fell on this glass table and his leg started bleeding, and instantly the other two, the brothers in the whole thing, the other brothers in the family, one of them got a belt and, like, to kind of stop the blood, and instantly there was, like, one of them went to call. It was literally like, it was like this, you can say this image of competition, but when it mattered we became collective instantly. It's like there was, here's the thing, this is the, I would say, the best case kind of scenario, where we realize we're not language. We give a freedom to language, but we don't give a freedom to violence. That means we are not thought policing the realm, yet if thought turns into violent action, call the police. So what does that mean? That means we begin consciously, like, imagine teachers teaching kids, hey kids, there's a linguistic simulation. You all have names. You're all going to go into archetypes of professions. You're all going to go into characterhood in regards to different stories. And just remember, kids, in this whole lifetime, you are the author of your free will. But the author of the outer realms, unless you were a solipsist or you were God, I don't know. It's the author. The author of the outer realms is nature's presence. That means, you see, it's like sometimes it's pretty cool that the person cannot have an opinion. This neutrality is a backup system for ideological inner violence becoming outer violence, because wars begin in the minds of men. And guess what? You know how wars end? Also in the minds of men. And it's a challenge, it's such a massive challenge. It's as if every person, I remember there was this game called Gears of War. And in Gears of War, there was this scene where these different soldiers from pods, from like a totally different setting, were being thrown into this landscape, and the soldiers would get out of the pod and go find the other soldiers and suddenly build a unit, And this unit ended up at the end of the game, I don't know, saving humanity from, ignorance. My whole point is not to give ideology power, but to say that ideology's power is limited to the conscious attention that has some sort of utility, use of that ideology. Because here's the thing, think of how able the mind is to visualize things, and you're like, you can see, like, from the beginning of your life, the mind has been doing that. It has been generating, I mean, technically it's been endlessly re-emerging as individualism. So I would say when I go to sleep, that's voidhood, that's the void. And then when I wake up, there's individualism. And then if the individualism is still and silent in the outer realms, I notice the collectivism of the inner realms. When I notice the collectivism of the inner realms, all fear and opinion on the ideological self goes away. And so what happens is you observe language in a way where your every word is actually within it. There's an image. There is an image, or it's hollow. So my process of, I would say, conceptualization was first look at language, then see image. When that reverted, that everything, it became easy for me to remember, and to some degree, not only easy to remember, but I could scroll back, you know? I could rewind back through my thoughts because it had image. Those, it's like if a person speaks and they don't have any images in their mind, then what they're saying, what they have said is, how would I say it? Like, there's a film behind your eyes. If you can see the film prior to language, just like they say how a picture is more than 1,000 words, if in your inner realms you see more than one picture, you see a film. That's endless words. Endless words can be generated. The mind is here to endlessly express. The mind has no other job. What other job can our minds have? They are the controllers of the effort of living. Of course, guys, entertain the topic, the title, because when I say we may be becoming a mind, I am not saying this means that we have to dismiss the responsibility of the body. You know, it's as if life is like you're sitting at a piano. You look at these piano keys, black and white. You notice karma's dance, karma's context at least. Then there's some people who've sat at this piano and they're like, how did other people play it before me? Oh, okay. You know, and they're trying to play it in accordance to past notes. The person may want to play Beethoven's Ninth Symphony. That's the past reliving. That's technically Beethoven stealing the opportunity of you actually finding something new. You know, if the effort, if there was I mean, in a certain context, of course. What I'm saying is that some people, they are waiting for instruction. Some people realize they're only waiting for themselves. That means you play the piano and you don't fear your finger hitting a piano key. You don't fear if the piano key is off. You don't fear if the piano key doesn't make sense. It is the nature of the realm. The event, the show goes on, regardless of how many ways we wrap language around. That is the honor of the continental philosophers, you know, that they reached a point where they realized if they had concluded only pure materialism, it would be dishonesty to the mystery behind the eyes, the mystery of language. That means there is, I could tell you that what in nature suggests that elemental particles should be able to speak. It is so unique, and our only way to access or comprehend a design is by being a design and creating designs, static and dynamic. And guys, this is how far I see of it. You know, there could be people who see much more. But I notice that the unknown is where true power lies, beyond thought. Language has owned us for too long, you know. This is why when I came up with the name Mr. Within, I was like, alright, glitch. I found a glitch, you know. It's a name that could never be a name. It's a quality. You know, snakes see in infrared, dogs see black and white, you know, cats have a certain vision at night. Creaturehood has a perception of its own. All creatures have a sort of limitation of how their inner realms appear to them. That means, from the dog's point of view, what colors? You know? Nature has many eyes. We are nature's most advanced eyes so far. And as the eyes of nature, the sophistication has led us to the journeyer archetype, where we have moved from not only seeing just an outer realm self, but an inner realm self. And the inner realm self is the mind's journey, which is peace. Your mind without peace is in pieces. For the outer realms, the journey has to be activity. That means, I'm telling you, there are yogis in India who they go into samadhi, but when they get up from samadhi, literally their body is also a bit destroyed. I'm telling you, you can't sit still and have nothing happen. Something happens, but not as chaotic as one would say. The power of the will can command the body, just like how you have certain generals, you know, they command on the battlefield. You can say your attention can command your atomic existence. That's how you move your hand, brother. That's how you move as a being. It's a command. That means, you know how in the, I'll use this video game called Skyrim as a metaphor. The character in that game had this, there was this idea of being dragonborn, and the person had shouts. So the person could do this shout and suddenly, I don't know, a dragon would appear. Like the character would do a shout and suddenly a force of wind would hit the other characters or something, you know? So these shouts are like commands. They are like things thrown. They are, you can say, precision efforts. And these precision efforts, if they are sincere and real, the biological system abides. That means, if the mind truly wants to live, the body will support its ally. You know, the human story has been 4.5 billion years in the making. And all that we have realized is it's still a story yet. Either we accept it as a story, as an illusion, or we dive into the nature of direct experience. Every human being journals their inner realms, shares it in the collective cyberspace hive mind, and I don't know, the future may be able to then cry less. If we were to become a mind, like a pure mind, that means there were no longer individuals, it was just one field. Everybody had become an energy field. Then, how long could we stay as that collective mind? Okay. All right. I was thinking I can use, pretty much, guys, I'm trying to use images to express my wonder that if we were a drop, right now we're at a drop state of consciousness. Pretty much people, the drop wants immortality and it's afraid of evaporation. You know, we want to live forever. We don't. We're afraid of death. You know, that is the psychology of the drop, the individual consciousness. Then we are going into the river. That means if the drop doesn't find the river, it evaporates. If you as an individual conscious being do not find some sort of rhythm of advancement, I would say, and this is the issue where the civilization literally needs to update. We need some new designers in the business. But I would say from individual consciousness of the drop, where I would say from duality, we're going into the river. So the drop falls from the leaf into a river. When it falls into a river, instantly it's individualism. It hasn't found completion. There's still the unknown and the known, but the unknown and known are no longer bound to dualism. They can also be witnessed. So what it is that the individual becomes a collective momentum, okay, a collective river. This collective river goes through a waterfall, an angular shift, a 90-degree angular shift, and then finds itself back going towards the ocean. Now, the ocean is the future of the drop. So, individual consciousness is today, tomorrow, today was a figment of the collective imagination. You know, it would be a moment where 8 billion human beings would be like, oh my God, did we all just become nature right now? Become a collective being right now? You know? A drop in an ocean, what is the life purpose of the drop? The question can't even be asked if the drop is in the ocean. Even when the one goes into a river, the question it doesn't get asked. You know, that means individualism is honestly a mask. Our true face, when we try to take off the mask, that face is the collective. That means underneath the individual, there is a collective truth hiding. And underneath the collective being, there are individual truths hiding. Pretty much like, do we give the microphone to the electron or do we give it to the atom as a whole? You know? Billy in the chat section says once you put energy into becoming part of something, it becomes a part of you, whether physical or mental, as a memory. Yes, but the memory is not you. This is why we say we have memories. Who's that we? Who's that I? When somebody says I have a memory, that it's like we're owning the memory. So technically, we are not the memory. We'd be owning ourselves. Just the fact that we can scroll through different memories, it's kind of like something is be outside of the memories being perceiving. It's as if the inner realm, I would say. It is. Somebody used this metaphor once of people being like gas, the nature of the mind. What does that mean? That means different colors of gas. Let's say the color spectrum, and these gases, they, in some sense, when they communication is as if like two inner realms are sharing. You know, two or more. So what it, I don't know how to say it, but like behind every person's eyes, they have another pair of eyes. But that those eyes are the eyes of the mind, which are just the awareness as the whole moment. That means, honestly, if I was to say what my relationship after all these laps around the sun is with energy, like how I perceive energy, is that, yeah, energy from the beginning didn't have a face. The face is the unknown component to why the energy is manifested this way. So the thing is, energy is not a mystery, you know, but the thing is how the energy is expressed, or the particularity, or why it has expressed in a way where we could even fathom another way to it. Are we becoming the mind of the world? If we become the mind of the world, we are no longer a world. We are the unknown to ourselves. But as long as we're not the mind of the world, we are a known. There can be the known individualism can be entertained. I would like to go into a quote tunnel and share some quotes from a man named Shams Tabrizi. Shams Tabrizi was you know how in Tibetan Buddhism they have gurus and whatnot? Shams Tabrizi was the Sufi, a mentor of Rumi. Now, Shams Tabrizi, he says, it is never late. I'm just going to read his quotes. He says, it is never late to ask yourself, am I ready to change my life? Am I ready to change myself? In quotations. However old we are, whatever we went through, it is always possible to be reborn. If each day is a copy of the last one, what a pity. Every breath is a chance to be reborn. But to be reborn into a new life, you have to die before dying. That means you have to allow the inner subjective landscape to shift, and like a web browser refresh, you know. Shams Tabrizi says the chemistry of mind is different from the chemistry of love. The mind is careful, suspicious. He advances little by little. He advises, be careful, protect yourself. Whereas love says, let yourself go. The mind is strong, never falls down. While love hurts itself, falls into ruins. But isn't it in ruins that we mostly find the treasures? A broken heart hides so many treasures. And the treasures are not in the outer realms. They're insights about the nature of the position of conscious being. That means it's a feedback report. Anything that happens in life, like when I look at karma, it's like it's like, what is karma technically? It's just waves of information hitting you. Anyways, to continue, Shams Tabrizi says, instead of resisting to changes, surrender. Let life be with you, not against you. If you think my life will be upside down, in quotations, don't worry. How do you know down is not better than upside? I mean, we're on a sphere in the middle of nowhere. Technically, you can fight about up and down endlessly, you know. Shams Tabrizi says there are more fake guides, teachers in the world than stars. The real guide is the one who makes you see your inner beauty, not the one who wants to be admired and followed. Yeah, guys, anytime I want to be admired and followed, instantly unsubscribe, you know. You know. You know, we gotta create a backup system, you know, that's the proper engineering, you know. Shams Tabrizi says a life without love is a waste. In quotations, he says, should I look for spiritual love or material or physical love? Don't ask yourself this question. Discrimination leads to discrimination. Love doesn't need any name, category, or definition. Love is a world itself. Either you are in at the center, either you are out, yawning. Shams Tabrizi says the whole universe is summed up in the human being. Devil is not a monster waiting to trap us. He is a voice inside. Look for your devil in yourself, not in the others. Don't forget that the one who knows his devil knows his God. Oof, okay. So let me tell you, there is an important point in this quote, but I'm going to share. You see, guys, the idea of, let us say, the devil was the duality. You know, you could say it was the earliest personified archetype of dualistic truth. That means it's as if like there was ultimate order. You see, this is the difference between ancient mythology and the Abrahamic religions, you know. Ancient mythology started from chaos, then order arose, do you know? But in the religious narrative, there was ultimate order. Then man did something wrong. Then man became in a chaotic position. Then there was also a chaotic shadow, you know. Carl Jung speaks about the shadow as a major archetype, that the person, as I was saying, you got to see your chaotic self, not just your only ordered self. I mean, as both wings of the bird open, the sky becomes accessible. As there is a symmetrical rhythm to how chaos and order are perceived, inner realms can fly instantly. You know, a human being has a lot of limitations. But if the human being can close its eyes and in the inner realms appear to itself as geometry, and then geometry has so many freedoms of experiential sight that the human idea cannot authorize for the inner viewer. That voice inside, it is a devil if you don't realize it is you. If you don't realize that it is the unconscious communicating to the conscious, and the conscious because it thinks what it sees is the only thing, any discomfort is seen as, oh, something's there. I think that the point of this, when Shams Tabrizi says, don't forget the one who knows his devil knows his God, that means those who witness duality, they know they see what's there beyond it. Shams Tabrizi, the Sufi mystic, says, when everyone is trying to be something, be nothing, range with emptiness. It is pointless trying to know where the way leads. Think only about your first step, the rest will come. Shams Tabrizi says the universe is a complete, unique entity. Everything and everyone is beyond together with some everything and everyone is bound together with some invisible strings. Do not break anyone's heart. Do not look down on those weaker than you. One's sorrow at the other side of the world can make the entire world suffer. One's happiness can make the entire world smile. And honestly, guys, I mean, like, who doesn't want an advanced civilization? That means if we want to know who the aliens are on this planet, it's all those human beings who don't want an advanced civilization. Shams Tabrizi says, this world is like a mountain. Your echo depends on you. If you scream good things, the world will give it back. If you scream bad things, the world will give it back. Even if someone says badly about you, speak well about him. Change your heart to change the world. I mean, Tony Stark, Iron Man, definitely changed his heart. And he changed the world, so technically this is true, Shams Tabrizi says, patience is not sitting and waiting. It is foreseeing. It is looking at the thorn and seeing rose, looking at the night and seeing the day. Lovers are patient and know that the moon needs time to become full. From a mystical standpoint, that means you gotta have patience for your world too. That means all those people who think the world outside in the outer realms is evil and cruel, it's like suddenly you'll notice it's just unupdated. That's it. It just doesn't know better. If the civilization knew better, it would be better. Because it doesn't know better. And when I say it doesn't know better, on a natural, instinctual level as a creature. Shams Tabrizi says the past is an interpretation, the future is an illusion. The world does not move through time as if it were a straight line proceeding from the past to the future. Instead, time moves through and within us in endless spirals. Eternity does not mean infinite time, but simply timelessness. If you want to experience eternal illumination, put the past and the future out of your mind and remain within the present moment. Yeah. And then Mr. Within would say, anytime you want to step out of eternal illumination, you just bring in linear time. That's the switch of being in the passenger seat of the realm, of the intelligence of the realm, or being in the driver's seat. Right now, our individual consciousness is in the driver's seat, but from the mind's view, it's like, energy is in the driver's seat. Shams Tabrizi says you cannot study God through everything and everyone in the universe, because God is not confined in a mosque, synagogue, or church. But if you are still in need of knowing where exactly his abode is, there's only one place to look for him: in the heart of a true lover. Yeah, that's true, because I would say the state of love is non-resistance. If the state of love is a non-resistant state, there is less inhibitions to what actually the truth is to the realm. We can have this view, there is no truth, or we can have this view, we cannot see truth yet. And if that truth moves beyond the attributes, and I created the term the language threshold, if knowledge goes beyond the language threshold, then we will either be a silent civilization, either our minds are connected, or the teleportation of concept is instant. That means the moment, it's as if like at that point there would be no need for live streams or communication. Literally, if we connect all our heads to a computer, it's like there's no, it renders the purpose of the body void. Shams Tabrizi says, whatever happens in your life, no matter how troubling things might seem, do not enter the neighborhood of despair. Even when all doors remained closed, God will open up a new path only for you. Be thankful. It is easy to be thankful when all is well. A Sufi is thankful not only for what he has been given, but also for all that he has been denied. Guys, these quotes are from 800 years ago, by the way. That means the prejudices upon nature are dismissed by its just collective being. It's all being. Shams Tabrizi says, no matter what people call you, you are just who you are. Keep to this truth. You must ask yourself, how is it you want to live your life? We live and we die. This is the truth that we can only face alone. No one can help us. So consider carefully what prevents you from living the way you want to live your life. Guys, this is proof that there were motivational speakers back in the day. Motivational speaking is an ancient art form, yeah. Shams Tabrizi says, you learn by reading, but understand by love, which is honest vision, I would say. Shams Tabrizi says, don't search for heaven and hell in the future. Both are now present. Whenever we manage to love without expectations, calculations, negotiations, we're indeed in heaven. Whenever we fight hate, we are in hell. Yeah. It's Occam's razor, but for the simplest psychic component. Sham says, love is a travel. All travelers, whether they want or not, are changed. No one can travel into love and remain the same. Shams Tabrizi says, intellect takes you to the door, but it doesn't take you into the house. Shams Tabrizi says, be sure that someday you'll praise and thank God for your unanswered prayers that once you had wept for them. Shams Tabrizi says, you can be everything in life, but the important thing is to be a good person. Yeah, that's basic. That should literally be before they teach the letter A, the alphabet to kids, they should teach about, the idea of a good person, then the alphabet, Not a specificness, but a sort of tolerance of character. Shams Tabrizi says, to get closer to truth and right, we need a beautiful and soft heart. Shams Tabrizi says the real dirt is not outside but inside in our hearts. We can wash all stains with water. The only one we can't remove is the grudge and the bad intentions sticking to our hearts. That means anytime there's jealousy, envy, some sort of wanting to like snake like cobra like attack something, you know, it's like, I'll tell you, it's like the thing is, it's it's chewing gum on the shoes of your heart, as Shams says. You don't need that. Shams Tabrizi says, do not worry about tricks and cheaters. If some people are trying to trap and hurt you, truth is also trapping them. Hole diggers will always fall in their holes. No bad remains unpunished, and no good remains without being awarded. So have faith in justice and let the rest be. And guys, it's statements like these that honor is important. Honor means shame cannot occur if it is held to the status of the person. Now, what is the honor of an evolutionary step into becoming the let's say ultra mind of the cosmos? We are evolving towards the ultra mind. That's a good way of saying it. Guys, I think I'm going to rename this episode Evolving Towards the Ultra Mind. This episode has a middle name. I think that is the next phase. That is the next mountain for the future generations of philosophers to climb. To wonder about how individuals are just like how cells joined and became complex. The cell replicated, self-replicated and became complex. Now, individual conscious living has self-replicated and has, through momentum, found to a point where to become that oceanic ultra mind. Now, what has happened is that in ancient books, they're saying that oceanic ultra mind is always there. It's just man who is trying to climb the mountain. You know, two people can open doors, but one is... One is opening the doors from the inside, one is the opening from the outside. That means we are opening, we are imbuing life in accordance to either more attention to our inner landscape or more attention to just the outer landscape. Because we have the ability to do both, because the person has an ability to believe and disbelieve, to know and not know, we are left in a position where instead of taking sides, we must embrace the multidimensional witness. I would say for the cultural program, the idea of the multidimensional witness is the freedom, it is the salvation, it is the savior of the inefficient loops in society. We have to not only have an ability to perceive, and this has been the case where every day the person wakes up, they perceive there's who they are in a new way, right? So technically our inner realms are multidimensional. Thoughts are coming and going, you know. As Sri Ramana Maharshi says, let what comes come, let what goes go, see what remains. If every individual person could acknowledge an civilization as an unknown, from the unknown emerging collective mind, pretty much it's how well the species wields chaos and order. And the witness is the best position, the multidimensional witness. So no longer the person thinking they're good, they're bad. It's just like it's the mind's search history. It's the existential mind's experiential search history. One last quote from Shams. He says, if you want to change the way others treat you, you should first change the way you treat yourself. Unless you learn to love yourself fully and sincerely, there's no way you can be loved. Once you achieve that stage, however, be thankful for every thorn that others might throw at you. It is a sign that you will soon be showered in roses. Guys, this is the most important quote of this episode. Anyways, guys, I hope this episode was helpful. Honestly, we're all explorers on a battlefield, really. And I mean, here's the idea, you know. Usually we tend to think that materialism is renouncing abstract experience. But I would say it's like imagination is looking through the front view of reality, the front window, car window of the reality, you know. I mean, honestly, like when I wonder about the future, I mean, not the idea of the future is the concept, but it's all probabilities of just attention expressing in landscape in accordance to landscape. Really. That means if they, like, think about it, if we suddenly, um, I mean, this idea was too chaotic, but let's say. we all started moving at the speed of light, and we became, every human being was moving at the speed of light. Okay, let's just fathom this. Okay, when we were moving at the speed of light, we would technically be there, but we would be invisible to the light. At the same time, moving at the speed of light, what could we say from that state? That means when there is no time, there's no ability to tell a story. If there's no ability to tell a story, there can be no character. Time is duality's lawyer in the judgment of the, cosmic mystery. So anyways, guys, thanks for listening. I'm going to be on Discord for 10 minutes for those interested or who have questions. And really the point of this episode was just for human beings to wonder, where is all this going? One last thing to share, guys, from Sri Nisargadatta Maharaj. He says, first the I am myself comes. Then the I am myself goes, leaves. Then the I am all comes. So first there's the individual dimensions to life. The I am myself comes, the I am all comes, then the I am all leaves, then the I am comes. So from the individual, we went towards the collective. From the collective, we're just going to pure being. And then Sri Nisargadatta Maharaj says, after the I am leaves, nature is. That means beyond the most ultimate position of reality, truth is. That should be the most shortest spiritual quote ever written. I think truth is, period. So anyways, guys, thanks for listening. I hope this episode was helpful. Bless.